So Halo 5 is almost 3 years old, which is really crazy to think about as I vividly remember the excitement around its release and all of its new features. And lately I've been playing a lot more Halo 5 multiplayer because I do honestly think it's a lot of fun. As controversial as it may be, I do think Halo 5's multiplayer is really enjoyable. Are there lots of things wrong with it? Yes. And is it anything like what Halo multiplayer should be? No, not really, but I do think it's fun. And one of the biggest additions Halo 5 made to Halo's multiplayer is the addition of Warzone. It was a pretty big endeavor that 343 took on by creating this mode, and there are some parts of it that I find really fun. However, this mode also failed in many areas that would have been integral to its success. And considering Frank O'Connor's comments about the rec system being unintrusive and the absurd amount of money that I'm sure it made in Halo 5, I am sure we will see a return of the rec system in Halo Infinite. So since we're still scarce on news about Infinite, I thought it would be fun to do another retrospective review, this time on Halo 5's Warzone. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's take a trip all the way back to E3 2015, where we got the full reveal of Halo 5 and the new Warzone game mode. And I think most people's reactions were curiosity and obviously excitement. You can even go back to videos on this channel and hear what I had to say about the gameplay we got at the time. The idea of these giant epic battles between Prometheans, Covenant, and two teams of enemy Spartans sounded awesome and really just chaotic. We were told that the maps would be 4 times bigger than any Halo map previously, and that it would rely on the rec system, which I'll get into later. And yeah, my initial reactions were, like I said, excitement, but also caution, since the idea of a system with burn cards in Halo sounded like it may not be the best idea, and we were all right. And it looked like it had a lot of variety though, and I was still excited. Fast forward 3 years, and now we have all been able to play Warzone and its different versions for a while now, and for the most part, it disappointed me. So we are going to start out by talking about the main Warzone mode. Warzone was, like I mentioned, 343's newest addition to Halo multiplayer that featured 2 opposing teams of 12 players. You earn points by killing enemy players, holding bases, and killing bosses. And really the first question is simply, is it fun? And the answer is sorta, it's like a really mixed bag. I've already mentioned that I think Halo 5's gameplay is pretty fun, and for the beginning of Warzone matches this remains true. You start off clearing out your base of enemies, and then you race to the different bases. And this part is really just fine. It lasts like 2 minutes and you eventually encounter the enemy team. Once again, the pure gunplay I find really enjoyable. Just fighting with pistols and BRs on a big wide open battlefield is fun, and that's pretty much the entire experience. You increase rec levels and are able to spend them on more vehicles, weapons, and power-ups that you've unlocked through rec packs. So the PvP stuff starts out pretty promising, and then most matches will go one of 2 ways. Either you will get completely destroyed or the opposite happens. I'm not saying that there aren't some balanced matches that are neck and neck the whole time and really fun. I'm sure that full 12-person fire teams competing is sorta balanced and a lot of fun. I even remember the first few months of the game being out, playing lots of balanced matches. However, most games I play today are extremely one-sided and not very fun. One team usually just takes out the first bosses, captures the center base, and then just dominates the rest of the game with rec weapons. And it gets even worse when just most of the losing team leaves before the game even ends, which happened a surprising amount in the last few weeks. Once everyone gets to around rec level 5 or 6, things just go completely crazy, and this is a feeling I actually really like in Warzone. Coordinating with your teammates and spawning in a ton of different crazy weapons and vehicles to take the monument or the spire is just an awesome feeling. It does just get really annoying though when you spawn in your favorite rec weapon and immediately get killed and have it taken by your teammates or enemy teams. Maybe introducing some sort of weapon lock feature where only you could pick up your weapons. I know that doesn't really encourage team play, but I just think that'd be something, if you had the option maybe to turn it on, that'd be sorta cool. And just looking around and seeing Banshees and Phaetons and Wasps all in a dogfight while a sniper fight is happening around you while you all try to capture a base is really fun and satisfying, and just that also encourages team play, and it's just a really enjoyable experience. However, while instances like this are cool, they're few and far between. And again, most situations like this are in pretty balanced games. What you'll see a lot more of is just one team completely dominates the game with rec weapons and just surrounds all your bases with Phaetons and rocket launchers until they've captured everything and can move to your home base. Which is also something I was pretty interested in seeing how they would do with all the base capturing and destroying the core and all those features. I actually went back and read a Q&A 343 did in 2015 about Warzone, and one of the questions was how they would prevent spawn killing. And their answer was that players would always have a number of locations to spawn at, which is great until they've taken all 3 bases and you're stuck fighting for your life at home base, getting spawn sniped, and really struggling to make a dent in the enemy team's progress. I'm not really sure how this could be improved without a major rework of the mode, but I'm sure we'll end up getting that anyways. The maps are also a huge selling point of this mode, and they're pretty 50-50. It launched with 3 maps back in 2015, being Escape from Ark, which I'm kinda indifferent on, I like it, March on Stormbreak, which actually has a really unique design to it, and I like, and Raid on Apex 7, which I initially enjoyed, but have sort of flipped on. When I first played the game, I was shocked by the freedom the map offered and just how vast it was. However, as time has gone on, I've just kinda enjoyed it less and less. The Spire is mostly really boring to attack and defend, and just in my opinion one of the worst central bases in the game. I do visually like the look of the map though, even if it is the most impressive thing in the world. I will say that the lack of real variety in Warzone, especially the maps, was one of the main reasons that many people, including myself, got bored of the mode really quickly. They then brought on Battle of Noctis, which I actually really love, and is maybe my favorite Warzone map. I just love the aesthetic of it, and I think it's a lot of fun whenever I play. And then Skirmish at Darkstar is also just fine. And the last map, Attack on Sanctum, I also really like. The details like Jewel Mdama being a boss are fun, and even though it's a little too big for my taste personally, I just think it offers a lot of variety. And I guess now I will address the rec system stuff, and there's really just nothing for me to say that hasn't been said to death over the last few years, so I won't really waste your time, but the rec system, obviously, is like a terrible addition to Halo that definitely should never be used for cosmetics, although I could have maybe seen it being implemented well with like different weapon unlocks, and the rec system as a whole, like with just weapon unlocks in Warzone, maybe that could have worked well. However, it didn't, and unfortunately all the Warzone modes suffer because of it. Everything about Warzone is intrinsically tied with the rec system, and just doesn't work. The ability to pay real money and get 100 of everything really good weapon in the game before even entering a match is absurd. So yeah, the rec system obviously bad, don't ever return, and if it does, don't contain armor and weapon skins and all the cosmetic stuff, and don't have the ability to pay real money. And I think that's about it for the majority of the PvP stuff. I'd say you'll enjoy it for the most part if you find Halo 5's gunplay fun, but even if you do, there's a good chance that the spam of vehicles, Norn fangs, and just all the different weapons will turn you away very quickly. And obviously one of the biggest aspects of the Warzone modes is the PvE content. It was one of the selling points of the game, and really the main thing that separates Warzone from just being an increased big team battle. And the AI can be so incredibly frustrating. The only friendly AI are Marines of each team that are in each captured base that are hardly worth acknowledging since they're not really a real threat, they don't really give you any points, and they're really only there to make the inexperienced players feel like they matter. But the unimportant AI, besides them, we do have the important ones, which are the enemy bosses, and just the enemy Prometheans and Covenant you fight. Just the standard enemy AI are fine, they're not really special, but they do make the game feel more like an experience with multiple different factions fighting. And then we do have the bosses, also are sort of a mixed bag. This is pretty new like for Halo to have these bosses, and unfortunately they never really feel that fun to fight. Again, just like the PvE stuff, you'll occasionally have that moment of pure joy where two teams at 950 points are competing to take down the Warden Eternal, but again, it's really rare. The bosses are obviously incredibly strong, and just standing still and pressing right trigger for 2 minutes on an elite isn't really that fun. It's not the most boring thing in the world, like I wasn't insanely bored most of the time I was doing it, but I just feel it could have been done so much better, while still allowing the sense of freedom that the mode should give you. Also, the way the game recognizes which team kills each boss is just really broken and incredibly annoying. I can't tell you the amount of times me and my friends have shot at a boss for just minutes at a time, just spamming shots, and then one rocket or one sniper bullet from an enemy team flies in, and they get the kill. Again, I'm not really sure if it is a significantly better way to do this, but it really deters me from going for bosses in Warzone. For being such a big part of the game, most of the bosses just aren't as much fun to fight as they should be. I do appreciate some things about the bosses though that can make them pretty enjoyable to fight sometimes. I like that the boss spawns are random and really mix up how you fight them on different maps. I also like the variety in the actual bosses. Even in the span of just one match, you might face Phaetons, Prometheans driving Warthogs, Wraiths, Grunt Goblins, and Warden Eternals all in the same match. The fact that some of the bosses are actual characters and real people from the Halo universe with names is awesome, especially like Jewel Mdama, which I already mentioned. And it's not a huge thing, but it does just help to differentiate the fights and make them feel like they actually matter, even though the whole thing's a simulation apparently. Bosses like the Grunt Goblin are just awesome, and a lot of fun to encounter in-game, and even though the Warden Eternal wasn't great, he was actually really bad in the campaign, he is mostly fun to fight him with just 11 of your other friends. So while some of the bosses stand out, most are pretty bland, and for me this is one of the biggest things they could improve on for future Warzone modes. Make creative bosses that stand out, and that you remember like the Grunt Goblin, that are also fun to fight. So overall, the core Warzone mode, like I've already said, is a mixed bag. The PvP gunplay can be fun, and is commonly made like fun, but also made really annoying through the overuse of rec weapons, and the bosses sometimes are also fun to fight, but are really lacking anything memorable or unique about them. Now moving on to the other Warzone modes, starting out with Warzone Assault, which I don't love and really only played a lot during launch because it was one of the fastest ways to get rec points when the game first released. In Assault, you either attack or defend a certain point, and sort of modified versions of the Warzone maps, and a lot of what I said about the core mode applies here. The gunplay is still the same, and the overuse of rec weapons once again arises. I will say that the spawning in this mode is absolutely terrible, since either one of the teams will spawn outside the current base being either attacked or defended, and just get demolished by the other team. Also, ever since this mode released, I just always has gotten an absurd amount of assists, and I get it, it's bound to happen since the entire enemy team is funneled through 1 or 2 doors in each base, but it's still really irritating. Really, there's not too much to say about Warzone Assault. The mode can be pretty fun, and I have had a lot of fun with it, but most times I'd rather go play normal Warzone instead. The maps are all mostly just fine except for Array, which is kind of the modified version of Raid on Apex 7, and it's horrible. The defending team will win 99% of the time because Aspire is just such a poorly designed structure, and it's terrible. If I just see Array, I really consider leaving if I'm ever still playing Warzone Assault. Overall, it's fine. Next is Warzone Turbo, which is only there like at certain points in the limited time mode, but I've actually played a lot of it, and it's really cool. It's basically just normal Warzone, but you always have luck level 9. So as you may imagine, it's complete chaos, but I'm more forgiving here since this ends up being a lot of fun. Obviously this mode is completely pay to win pretty much, since it's all about the amount of wrecks you have and how fast you can pull them out and how many kills you can get with all of them. But I am more forgiving here since it's trying to just be a fun arcade mode that they bring back every couple months. It's not trying to be this competitive, just really like sweaty thing. It's just pure chaotic fun to mix it up a little bit, and I like it. And the last mode is Warzone Firefight, which I have a lot to say about. So, after Halo 5 had been out for a few months, 343 released their content update roadmap, and the final one set to release was called Warzone Firefight. So obviously, we all got excited, and as we started hearing more about it, I became increasingly more cautious. And unfortunately, I was pretty disappointed with the final release of Warzone Firefight. The entire update itself, like all the other things they did in the game, was awesome, but the game mode itself could have been so much better. Just looking at Firefight by itself in this game, it's not terrible or anything, just disappointing. Warzone Firefight basically consists of an 8-man fire team completing 5 rounds that basically involves killing a lot of enemies. And it's fun for the first couple of times you play it, even like the first couple of months. I thought it was really enjoyable. It also gives you a good amount of gold packs, so there is an incentive for playing if you're trying to unlock rec packs. The rounds are as mostly like fun, they're about as much fun as you expect from the campaign, or just like the normal enemies in Warzone, and the objectives are pretty generic as it's just like kill 20 hunters, kill 15 knights, defend this core, yada yada yada, all that stuff. They're pretty uninspired but still not terrible. It does normally get pretty fun though in the final round. You have those moments of coordinating with all 7 other players to just get tons of tanks and banshees and Nornfangs and everything to take out 3 ward internals. It's fun and really the best moments you'll find in this mode. It is worth noting that there are like a ton of glitches in this mode when it first released, and that sort of made the experience worse for me, and really this game type is just waste potential for me. Firefight is a fan favorite mode that they introduced without many of the features that were to be expected. There was no customization of the rounds, the enemies, any of that stuff, no custom games, and just none of the real fun found in previous firefights. You couldn't even destroy enemy phantoms, so you just had to sit there and get obliterated by them, or scurry into one of the bases and go to a rec station. 343 sort of brought Firefight back, but they felt the need to implement the rec system into it, and that's really what ruined it for me. Having the ability to do significantly better in Firefight because you paid real money to get some packs should never be a thing in a Halo game, in my opinion. I do appreciate though that they at least added in 3 other difficulties for Firefight, since the original mode is pretty easy. Heroic is only slightly harder though, and even Legendary isn't really that difficult. The only difficulty that consistently presents a real challenge is Mythic Warzone Firefight, which unfortunately is only a limited time mode. One of the things I think they could have done to improve it is just kind of make the round objectives more creative. I'm not saying that Reach's Firefight was so good because of its variety in rounds, because it really wasn't, that's not what made that great, but the fact that you could really customize every single part of the firefight and play it with just a few of your friends if you really wanted to elevated it. So yeah, once again, the firefight mode just really was wasted potential for me. The need to integrate firefight with the rec system was a terrible decision that negatively impacted it for me. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say about Warzone. I do want to say that I do really appreciate 343 continuing to update and balance the mode even all the way into 2018. It shows that they are dedicated to the game, and really Warzone is a mode that I describe on the surface level as being pretty fun. However, most games today end up being extremely one-sided and extremely frustrating due to the implementation of the rec system. Assault is an extremely fine mode, and Warzone Firefight is still mostly fun, but a poor excuse for Halo Firefight. Like I said, I think there's a good chance the rec system, and therefore Firefight, will return in Halo Infinite, and hopefully the things I talked about today and the problems I had will be addressed, and Warzone can be the best mode it can possibly be. So let me know what you guys think about Warzone, and did you have some of the same complaints I had with the mode? If you liked this video, don't forget to check out my other retrospective review I did recently of Halo 4 Spartan Ops, and maybe I'll do another one in the future, and I am planning to do some other stuff like ranking some more missions from the Halo franchise like CE I'm currently playing through again. ODST I already played through, I've got that list working on, so if you guys want to see videos like that more in the future, subscribe if you're not already, and thank you guys for watching Majestic Gaming, and tell me what you thought of the video.